Hello, and welcome to the Goalink Show. My name is Ben Harris. I am the founder of Goalink, a goal-setting community sharing weekly challenges. These challenges are inspired by brands to bring you new ways to develop and improve yourself. You can kick back and watch me take on these exciting and uncomfortable challenges, or you can join me. I challenge every listener to complete these weekly goals. Catch the content on Instagram or Facebook at Goalink Group. The Goalink Show, this podcast recounts experiences from the achievers of the world, but not just the success. We delve into the challenges and the struggle that we all face. How do we find the will to push through? What role do motivation, discipline, and even failure play in our lives? Let's talk about the process and not just the result. We discuss this and much more in the show. Thanks for tuning in. This week, we have my friend Chris Hollifield, the voice of the I Am Salt Lake podcast. And not just a host, but a podcast nerd in the highest form possible, which is a big compliment. He is very knowledgeable about podcasts. We get some tips for the podcast in the show. We talk about how he went from 10 listeners to 10,000 listeners in just a month. He addresses his personal battle with handling negativity. Hear how he got to the point of running out of breath just tying his shoe. So he was running out of breath, tying his shoe, which later transformed into a gym habit and keto diet. We talk about his experience with therapy, his challenges and fear of vulnerability, and even the growth of Salt Lake with the business industry booming. So let's jump straight into it. Here's the interview with Chris. Everyone, welcome to the Goalink Show. We got the man, the voice, half of the voice of the I Am Salt Lake podcast, Chris Hollifield. What's up, my man?
Hey, thanks for having me on the podcast. It's always a little different to be on this side of the table, so bear with me on this. And like, I know he has a better podcast voice than me, but don't hate. No.
But I want to give a quick shout out for winning Best Local Podcast in Salt Lake for 2018.
Thank you.
That's huge. Have you won that before?
No. So, we got in 2013, I got Best New Podcast.
Okay.
But this one was like by the reader's choice. So the Best New Podcast was because of a staff choice.
Okay.
And there's another podcast in town, Geek Show, that usually always wins. I think they maybe stepped back this year and said, you go ahead and I don't really care. Either way, it's cool. It's a good thing to have, I guess, right? But
okay, that's dope, dude. Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Random Facebook message. You actually interviewed my rap group years ago.
Yeah.
So, and you have seen a ton of success. I want to delve into hopefully some different things that you haven't talked about too much.
Yeah.
About the business, the entrepreneurial side, the motivational side of what you do.
The hustle.
So I want to know really what inspired the podcast, because you've been doing it for 7 years. You did it before it was cool. Like the past 1 or 2 years have exploded.
Thank you. And that's due to my wife, Christina. She goes on the podcast, but that's all due to her. And I probably would have quit if she would have never came along in my life. But you, how far back do you want to go to, like how it started and the idea? I mean, I don't know.
Like, where'd you first hear a podcast and I'm gonna do it?
So if we can go back, and I mean, if we got time, I'll kind of give you the long story.
Do it, man, as long as you want.
I was always interested in blogging, right? Blogging. I love writing. I was always told I was a good writer as a child in my teenage years, but people online can be really mean.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to say this right now: grammar Nazis, spelling Nazis, and so what they do is somebody like myself, and maybe I just need to get thicker skin. Maybe I need to. But it creates this fear in me to write, to put myself out there, right? So I stop doing all that. My talent starts to die, the whole 9 yards, right? And that's one reason I do a lot of what I do on Facebook now, is to get over a lot of those fears of people judging me and people. Anyway, so it was about probably 2010, 2011-ish. I was told by a friend of mine that does a blog in Colorado, you should do a podcast. Well, what's a podcast? And that's all that was said. Later on, I used to go to a lot of activities with some of the guys from Geek Show podcast. my wife at the time, my ex-wife, we would go to these events, and they just always seemed like they were having fun. They would talk about this podcast they did, and thus I hear about it, and I'm like, what's this podcast stuff all about?
Yeah.
And I was like, they just seem like they're having fun. It seems like something I could do. Nobody's going to judge me if I'm spelling words wrong.
Conversation.
It's just a conversation.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about grammar. Anyway, I started listening to podcasts, This American Life, WTF with Mark Maron, and I still didn't know what I wanted to do a podcast about. I did know I wanted to do a podcast in person. A lot of people do podcast on Skype, but I was like, there's something about that human connection of sitting in the same room. You could see their body language. You can even just shake their hand, give them a hug, whatever. It hit me one time. I was at the downtown farmers market, and I was like, why don't I interview these people?
Yeah.
Right? The people that are doing cool things in Salt Lake. And I know that sounds so vague, but that's the beauty of the podcast. And the funny part about it is, so I pitched the idea to a few people, right? We'll leave their names nameless. They know who they are if they're listening to this. But they said it was the stupidest idea in the world, right?
Just because it's like normal? Like
well,
normal
no, they're
people?
like, that will never take off. There's not enough people in Salt Lake City to listen to podcasts, right? Because, back then, especially 2011, not a lot of people were listening to podcasts. Even though podcasts started back in about 2004 is when the whole thing kind of started. But I was like, I don't know, man. Even if only 30 people listen, I still want to do this. This seems like a fun idea, right? People were like, oh, you're going to run out of people to talk to. That was another thing people said. Always with these negative people shooting down the idea.
Yeah.
But I was determined to do it, and I didn't really know anybody. Again, I knew the Geek Show guys, but I didn't really know a lot of people that podcast. So I don't remember having the ability to ask anybody like really how to do it. I just started researching. I started looking on the internet. I spent a lot of money on unnecessary things. I had this idea to record them all on my iPhone. And this was an iPhone 4 at the time, right? Like, so keep that in mind. Like, they've progressed. And I didn't really realize, podcast doesn't need to sound amazing, but you wanted to make it listenable. So I kept kind of, and I never knew how far I wanted to go. I was like, well, maybe I'll only want to do 10 episodes, right? Because that was kind of how I was too. I was one of those people, I would try something and get bored and go on to the next thing. Anyway, I just started doing it, man. And the first 3 episodes were recorded on an iPhone. And then I want to say, I don't know how many were recorded sharing a mic, using these same mics that you have today. But I only had one plugged right into my MacBook. And just started recording, man. And then just started kind of adding more and more things. And I still do. I'm not as big. My wife, if I would let her have a little more... it's not that I don't let her, but she's a little more of a tech person than I am. Like, she would have 50 microphones if I was. But I'm the type of one that's like, well, these work fine, so why do we need other ones? So maybe it's my frugal side. I'm a frugal guy too. Like, let's save money if we can. But anyway, so I just started recording. And at the time, this is how crazy it was, man. At the time, I was going to nights classes at Salt Lake Community College. I had a full-time day job. And I heard somewhere, I don't know if it was on another podcast, because I found all these podcasts about podcasting, right? And they really helped me out. And they were like, the more episodes you can put out, the better. And then I would see podcasts like WTF with Mark Maron. I don't know if you ever listened to that one, or The Nerdist. They were putting out 2 and 3 episodes a week.
Yeah, that's a lot.
So I was like, well, I need to do 2 episodes a week, right? So I started doing 2 episodes a week. I'm married, going to night classes at Salt Lake Community College, day job. And I don't know. I mean, I can keep going, but that's kind of the story of starting and just getting in and figuring it out.
Yeah, well, I just think it's dope that you did it before it was like popular.
And it's funny because I still don't think is it popular now?
Just so you know, it is like
no, I see more people starting.
Well, like, do you know who? If you listen to like, you know Gary Vee, right?
Yeah.
Right, and other marketing-esque people out there, they say if you don't have a podcast, you're losing essentially. Because
Gary Vee also used to say that about Snapchat, though. You know what I mean? Remember when he
yeah.
was all like Mr. Snapchat? And now it's like
now Snapchat's done.
I got my beef with him, but we could.
Yeah, it's not even just him though. It's like
no, I know. They're podcasting. They say because I was actually listening. It's the last true, authentic form medium because every other medium is so
Produced.
fake. And so produced, photoshopped. People, they'll rent houses and cars to make it look like they have a lot of money, post their Instagram photos, right? And you don't know. Same thing with Facebook, man. You can make your life look awesome on Facebook. But you get behind a microphone, man, that's just a real conversation, right?
Okay, I love it, and it's grown a lot. Do you know the numbers of how many listeners you had at the beginning and now how many you have now?
Oh gosh, man, dude, I was lucky to get. I don't even want to say, it's embarrassing. Maybe 10 to 15 downloads in a month.
Dude, I love it. I love.
And now we maybe get 10,000 downloads in a month.
Dude, that's insane. Good for you.
So
man.
it's like.
That's so cool.
It's like, but I didn't really care, right? Because I figured. How many people are in a classroom, right? 30, 40 people, if you're lucky. Mm-hmm. If I was sitting there talking to 30 or 40 people, I mean, that's a decent amount of people, right? Mm-hmm. So,
and I'm sure that you mentioned, actually, if it wasn't for your wife, you would quit. I'm sure there have been moments of doubt and wanting to quit. So why haven't you?
Because I don't know anything else. Honestly. Like I don't, it consumes my entire day and it consumes my entire night. Seriously, it does. What else would I do with my time? Sit and watch TV?
Yeah.
I just picked up, I mean, we could go into this at another time too, but I just started blending my own beard oils.
Well, and that's kind of okay.
So we can get into that even a little bit later, but that's just because my therapist said I need some new hobbies. She's like, you need to find some new hobbies and new things to do besides podcasting.
Yeah.
And I don't drink beer anymore, right? And that's just because I don't do wheat. But if I
keto, I have that down too.
Well, I eliminated gluten years ago. But sorry, I'm probably jumping all over.
No,
the place.
I love it.
It's a part of podcast. Yeah. But if I always wanted to brew my own beer, right? But so it goes back to the beard oil. To me, that's like my because you're mixing all the oils together and you're coming out with your own scents, and so like that's my health food, beer brewing.
That's funny, dude. You mentioned, well, actually, let's go into this. As far as I remember seeing a few months ago a Facebook post, and it said, you might know which one, I can't win. Do you remember this one? You said, I can't. Yeah. He said, I can't win, ... Essentially, it was a nasty message saying that you only focus on the positive sides of Salt Lake and not what's really going on. And it seemed like you took that really hard.
Well,
from my perception,
dude, I still take it hard. I still take negativity, and it's one of my things I'm trying to get over. Especially now realizing that there's a few more eyes on me. Just the other day, I met with a friend. Well, I'm trying to figure out how much to say here, but I met with a friend. And I guess a few people have been. Chris is an asshole. I don't know. Sorry if we could swear.
No, dude, you're good.
Okay. And it was like, I'm an asshole? Like, what? How am I an asshole? But it's so. And I'll answer that question here in a second. But it's the hate I get from doing this podcast. And this is a good opportunity for me to even address this because I don't know if you saw, was it even just yesterday or a couple of days ago, I got a phone call, and we can get into this too. But it's like I try, you guys just heard the story on why I started this. I wanted to spotlight people doing cool things. Let them have the opportunity to share, right? Like we have good publications in Salt Lake.
It's not about you.
No, exactly, right? If anything, I was told in the beginning, you need to include a little more of yourself in here, right? Like, anyway, So I hear from a friend that, all these people think you're an asshole. Well, all these people are probably like 1 person, 2 person people, right?
Yeah.
I get a lot of hate mail. And again, not a lot, few.
Like email?
Emails.
Okay.
Stuff on Facebook, Twitter. People get angry because I won't bring them on the podcast. And it's not even so much that I won't bring them on, but when you're only doing 4 episodes a month, I can't get to everybody.
Yeah.
And it's like, is that my responsibility to bring you on? So this guy reaches out to me. Gosh, I wish I would remember everything, but it was so difficult because he just starts going off on me on how all I do is focus on all this great stuff and there's people dying in the streets and I need to be doing this and I need to be doing that. And it wasn't so much that I don't want to focus on the negative, but it goes back to there's all this great positive stuff that I still haven't even covered. Let's do that first, right? I've talked to homeless shelters. I talked to the road home. I talked to, actually, I've done a few episodes on the road home. I mean, we talk about the homeless situation in Salt Lake and all of that. And I think the news also does a good job of covering all of that.
That's what I was going to say. The news does plenty of negative things.
Well, and that's the idea is a lot of times people that come on the show, again, when I had you and the rest of your band and stuff, you maybe wouldn't have had an opportunity to come on a platform like a podcast, right? And that's the whole idea, because there's all these awesome people in Salt Lake City that are doing awesome things, that have a day job, and then they come home all night and work on their side hustle.
Yes.
They deserve the spotlight. They deserve that hour or 30 minutes or however long that episode is for them to get recognized. Because if it wasn't for them, imagine... I probably shared this with you guys when you guys came with the band, but I believe we're kind of this chain effect in Salt Lake, right? Where we all inspire people. You are maybe inspiring somebody else out there to start a podcast now, right? I mean, obviously, I've probably inspired people in Salt Lake to start a podcast.
You have, for sure.
And if it wasn't for these individuals, Salt Lake wouldn't be what it is, right? And so it's this domino effect, but...
So how do I
deal with it?
How do you deal with it?
Oh my gosh, it's hard. I talked to my wife, man. I cry. No, I'm serious. It's the hardest thing, and a lot of times I want to quit it all.
Well, thanks for admitting it, dude.
If I wouldn't do Facebook if it wasn't for doing a pod. I don't know how people do it. I don't know how people do social media. It's brutal, so negative, and just people are so mean. People are
dude, YouTube is the worst, I think.
Is it?
Like the comments are just like, yo, like, chill out.
And back in the day, I'm 41, so in like the 80s, growing up, you talk shit on somebody, you're gonna get punched out, right? Like nowadays, you could talk shit on somebody's Facebook, and then you'll run into them downtown, and they'll shake your hand. Yeah. It's like, okay, what's up with that, right? Or it's hard, man. How do I deal with it? I try not to internalize it. Again, it goes back to my positive stuff. I have to put it out there, right? Like,
because it's partially for you. It sounds like
it is. A lot of it is for me. Because a lot of it, Facebook memories. In a year, they're going to remind me that awesome quote or that awesome thing. And you have to, because you could slip into these depths of negativity, right? So you have to practice gratitude. You have to practice just smiling sometimes, and it's a daily struggle that you have to keep working on. It's not one of those things. Yes. Oh, I do it for a week, and then I'm happy, and then I'll stop doing it.
Well, it's just like the gym, man.
Gym, and that's another, dude. I've changed my life. I know
you've changed it. So it seems like over the past few years, is it correlated with getting married that you've changed a lot? Like it seems like self-development. You
having
really
a baby,
jumped into it.
Well, yeah, obviously I didn't have the baby, but becoming an older father.
Yeah.
I struggled. When I was 35, so about 6 years ago is when I went through my divorce of my first divorce, my first marriage. Even though I knew 6 months into that relationship, we should have broken up. 11 years later, I go through a divorce, right? And props to her for having the balls to say, let's get divorced, right? Because I would have just stuck through it and been miserable my whole life. I'm having fun dating, blah, 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 this and that. And anyway, I get married to an awesome girl. I love her to death. We've been together for over 3 years now. And, she gets pregnant. We were talking about kids, the whole 9 yards. And I was struggling. I had a really bad nicotine addiction. It's really bad with nicotine gum, the whole 9 yards. And I know that sounds so bad, sounds so wimpy compared to some people that are out struggling with like opiates and heroin. And
still an addiction.
And I knew I just needed to get my health back on track. I wasn't eating the best. I was dealing with a lot of issues, digestive issues, blah, blah, blah. Put on a lot of weight. And I would start huffing and puffing, tying my shoes, literally
tying your shoes,
tying my shoes because I couldn't bend over like I had. Sorry, I'm kind of moving from the microphone. I'm trying to show you, but I'm bent, just this big gut.
Wow. Dude.
Right, just in the way, and I would on and off go for a run, go for runs around, go for 2 miles or something, but never really stuck with it. Anyway, about 3 months after having our daughter Lucy, I was 40 years old. It was my 40th birthday, December 6th of, was it 2017? I was like, I'm going to the gym because I had a 24-hour fitness membership, right? Just sitting there. I'd go once in a while, right? Like maybe once every 8 months.
8 months.
And I went. I went and I didn't know what I was doing, but I knew, I was like, I have to drop this weight first, right? And so I went the next day, and went the next day, and I was like, I think I'm going to go every day.
Attaboy, dude.
And since I do the work from home, stay at home dad thing, at that time, I knew the only way I was going to go is if I got up at 5 a.m. to go to the gym. Because I knew, even though I preferred to work out at night, I knew there was too much of my life going on at night, and I wouldn't go a lot. So anyway, I'm getting up every morning at 5 o'clock, and my wife, she's like, it'd probably be good if you gave like 1 day off, like to let your body heal a little bit. Well, okay, that makes sense. And I mean, I pretty much have gone every day.
Even on weekends?
Even on weekends especially, because they're really easy because I can go a little bit later in the morning. I don't have to get up quite at 5 o'clock. So I go every day, and I do about an hour to an hour and 20 minutes of cardio and about another 30 minutes of weightlifting now.
Good for you.
After I lost 50 pounds, that's when I started wanting to lift weights. And I never lifted weights my entire life. I mean, I used to be the skateboard kid that we made fun of people that lifted weights, right? Oh, I don't want to be that jock and this and that. Well, okay, so then to back up a little bit, a month after going to the gym, I knew people that had really good results from doing the ketogenic diet. And so it was about January 15th of last year, I started keto. So it's almost been almost a year now. And I lost, it's hard because I know I gained some muscle too. So I would say I've probably lost like 60 pounds, but then probably gained another 10 pounds back of muscle.
That's good.
From it. But dude, my health is like, I've gotten so much better. I feel better. A lot of my digestive issues that I was dealing with are eliminated. It's easy. I need less sleep. Brain functioning. I still get a little bit of that ADD, but I don't think it's as bad. But I don't know, man. It just was. It hit me. I was like, I got to get control of my life. I have to. I'm only 40, right? At the time, I'm like, I'm only 40. I got at least 40 more years of life ahead of me. I want to be healthy.
Dude, that is awesome. I love hearing that. What else has it helped besides your actual health? Like, has it helped your business?
be like doing like
your
losing
habits,
weight
like
and
losing,
stuff.
yeah.
Of course, man, because you
Yeah.
you don't want to hide out at home.
Yeah.
I think when we all, we start to get a little bit of, we gain some weight and we become a little self-conscious. And so then we want to, well, I don't want to do this. And so, yeah, it also has helped me like, okay, I'm going to get the confidence now to go speak in front of people, right?
Good.
Because people are going to see me and I don't have to be all self-conscious now.
I love it.
Even though, even if, okay, we know, even if we all were to gain 50 pounds, nobody's going to really judge you on that, right? That's just our own internal battles that we're dealing with. So, if you're listening, get over that part, because that was like the worst thing I did to myself, was getting all caught up on that. But yeah, it's helped me with my business, and it's helped me because I've had more energy, right? Like to be able to work more hours, work more. And actually, it's not even so much working hours, it's being efficient with that time. Because if you're efficient with your time, sometimes you can get more done in 3 hours than these people that are like, oh, I put 18 hours in. It's like, well,
I did
were
3, man.
Were you efficient? Do you listen to? There's a good podcast, the MFCEO with Andy Frisella.
Oh yes, so I don't listen to it religiously, but I've heard it.
Dude, listen to this podcast. He's a good dude. He's a big believer in like just making a list of like 5 things, and you get those 5 things done. You get them done in 4 hours. You can you got the rest of the day. Like life is not necessarily meant to just be work.
It's not, dude.
And that's why even this whole hustle thing has been like, what's the word I'm looking for? It's been overused. Hustle. And it's like, I don't know. Like, that's even my problem with Gary Vee, man. Like, he's got this idea like, oh, I can sleep when I'm dead. And it's like, well, you're going to die if you don't get enough sleep. And I think that's like a poor image to be giving people, because so many people look up to him, so many entrepreneurs. And the problem I see with that is, luckily in my marriage, I have a wife that loves podcasting. I have a wife that loves to, we can sit and talk podcasts, or we can sit and talk about a business book.
That's awesome.
Or we'll go to, podcast conventions as our vacation.
Dude, that's dope.
But a lot of people don't have that. And the thing is if you feel like, well, I got to hustle all night, and you're not paying attention to your marriage or your relationship, man, you're going to lose that. And then what do you have? You come up from your basement from podcasting all night. What? There's nobody here?
Yeah.
So you
mentioned a therapist earlier. When did you start going to therapy?
Well, actually, I don't go to her anymore, and that's just because I haven't scheduled a time with you. No, well, okay, so I've gone on and off to therapy my whole life. In my 20s, I was in a bad relationship when I was living in Pennsylvania, and I was like, I need to go to a therapist. And at the time, it was like one of those city therapists or something like that, like for people that don't have a lot of money, right? Because therapy is expensive, which is BS in my opinion, because usually it's the poor people that need it the most, right? Because we're trying to cope with life. Anyway, so they weren't the best experiences, but so recently, we actually had her on our podcast, Jessie, and it was one of those things where it was like, this would be a good experience to do. And it is. I believe in investing in yourself, right? And so I was like, this would be a good time for me to go maybe work some of this stuff out in my head and work some stuff out. And we did. And honestly, it was kind of one of those things where I was meeting with her so much, I don't feel like I was able to get all the homework done too, right? Like it was like, I wasn't able to get all this stuff done. So I haven't seen her for a couple of months, but that one of the things she mentioned was I needed a new hobby. And the sad thing is there was a lot of truth to that. Yeah. Because I did, because all I would talk about is podcasting. And even though like my wife and I, we love to talk about it, I'm sure she would love to like talk about some other things too. And so that's where I'm trying to like, okay, I want to learn some new things and even listen to some other podcasts that maybe I wouldn't listen to, or history podcasts or like Let's Learn if you ever listen to, there's this fascinating podcast called Business. Here it is. We're talking podcasting. Business Wars. Listen to it if you haven't listened to it.
So I saw you recommend it.
Yeah, my gosh. Oh my gosh. It's so that they just releasing some episodes on McDonald's, like the history of me. And they go into depth, like Netflix versus Blockbuster and Adidas versus Nike. And anyway, so I don't know if that really answered your question.
No, it does. Like, and how I think you've inspired me. One of my goals this year is going to be go to therapy. I've never
Have you been to a therapist?
No.
Are you scared to go to a therapist?
I'm not scared, no.
Therapy is weird.
It sounds fun.
I just hit the microphone, sorry. Therapy is weird because you do need to find somebody that connects with you, and you don't really know what that is until it happens.
Yeah. Like, why is it good? Like, if someone says, like, I don't need therapy,
look at it as
why should you go?
Okay, do you believe that people could benefit from a life coach or a mentor, right?
Always, yes.
Like, I think we're talking, I don't know if we talked about it on the microphone or off before we recorded. That's all a therapist is a life coach, right? Why would it be a bad thing to be able to go into a room, just you and them, you and her, or you and him, whoever it is. You're in a room, just like right now, right? Nobody else is here. I could share things with you, and you're trained to be able to maybe help me understand why that is an issue or why that's a problem, or maybe you can give me a recommendation of something to do or change my thought pattern, maybe a book to read, whatever it is. That's all it is. And so many people think that only crazy people go to therapists. And maybe it's time to change their name. From therapist to something else. I don't know what is, because I mean, I wouldn't give them the label of a life coach or a mentor. I mean, I don't know, maybe mentor. I don't know what we would name them, but I think they just help work through some of that stuff in our head
that you can't do by yourself.
You can't do by yourself, and it's really not always fair to have your significant other
to
have to deal with all that, right? Because they just want you, and they don't understand maybe all this BS that you're still trying to work through from your first girlfriend, or maybe just, why did my mom stop loving me at 13 years? I mean, that's not true, Mom, if you're listening, but you know what I mean, though? Like, a lot of times we need that more experienced person to work to be able to work through that.
Okay, that's rad, man. Thanks for talking about that. This is like being authentic and like changing these things. I'm not sure if I'm just paying attention to it, but I'm pretty sure like whatever it's motivation therapy has gotten more popular.
I think it's because
with social media. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, just a few minutes ago I was talking about getting off of social media, and I mean, I think if you could, then please do. But no, I think being authentic is important because it helps people realize that we're all struggling, man. I think there was a time, and I feel bad for people that still suffer this, and I think we all do to a degree, where we want to look on the outside that we have all of our shit together, right? Our life is perfect. We're making we got to look like we're making a lot of money here. Right? We got this beautiful house on the hill and this beautiful vehicle that we can't afford, but as long as our neighbors think that we're doing good, that's all that matters. But what's going on inside, man? Their marriage is falling apart. They're a paycheck away from losing it all.
I think there's power in admitting your imperfections.
Yeah, man.
Like, for real though, like it just releases that tension.
Plus, when you admit it, I think is when you could start working on it too.
Yeah, well, and no one has power over you after that.
Exactly.
You can own it. On that same topic, what's something, whether it's business or otherwise, like, what do you like struggle with, like, that anyone else can relate to?
What do I struggle with?
Yeah, so if someone listens and maybe they're the opposite of Chris is an asshole, they're like, Chris is the man. He's perfect. He has 10,000 listens. I'll never get there.
I worry horribly what people think of me.
Mm-hmm.
So like, and we all have that one person, right?
Mm-hmm.
That we're like, oh man, that person's going to judge me.
Mm.
It goes back to even social media. I used to get ripped apart on social media really horribly, way before podcast days and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it was hard to put anything out there. And I still struggle with it. That's where a lot of even like try to, okay, you know, this is a cool motivational quote or something like that, so I can share this. And it's still hard. I mean, I'm struggle with it now. It's like I need to share. Like I'll sit there and think, I'll be like, man, I need to share something real about myself. And sometimes I can't even think of it, right? Like because we're just like, well, my life's boring, blah blah blah. I'm just sitting on the couch tonight, you know, drinking this wine and watching old Seinfeld episodes, you know.
Dude,
but
that sounds like a dope life.
Yeah, but I mean, the thing is like we feel like we can't share that because we can only share like, oh, look at this new car I just bought,
Or this vacation.
or this vacation,
Or
right?
my promotion or whatever.
So that I struggle with that. I don't know if that really is what
No.
you were looking
No,
for,
that
but
is.
I
Thank you.
struggle, or I struggle even with my current wife. I struggle all the time with her because I have this fear of, well, my ex-wife left me.
So
You
do you
know-
fear that she might leave?
Well, I fear that with anybody, man.
Hmm.
And no, I mean, hopefully I don't get, you know, she knows that. She knows, but just with anything, man, friendships,
Just relationships in general.
everybody leaves.
Hmm.
My mom got remarried when I was 8 years old, right? Like everything was my brother and I. Everything was my brother and I. She gets remarried when I was 8 years old, and all of a sudden, her new husband's the important guy, right? So I mean, you can go really deep
Yeah.
into where a lot of things are rooted from, but it's this whole like fear of abandonment, fear that I'll be forgotten. And I think that's where even a lot of like doing a podcast is like, I want to leave a good mark, right? I want to leave I want to be remembered when I die. All right.
So have you practiced like having like your self-worth not attached to other people? Like,
no.
like I know
you got some tips and tricks? Maybe I have.
Well, right, like for me, I actually heard a podcast today about the title was Happy for No Reason. And essentially people can leave, things can be taken away
Anytime, man.
anytime. And so if you attach your worth to that, then it's a risk.
This was a podcast?
Yeah.
What?
I'll send it to you.
Please do, because it sounds like exactly.
So it's essentially just saying you have the choice regardless. Like you don't need an external reason to be happy. Like, but it's not just saying.
So what? How do you
shut
get
up
over,
and be happy?
How do you get over that then?
So of your.
Well, how do you not do that anymore? What did the podcast give you any recommendations or tips?
So it's
Please
for.
tell me.
Please tell me. It's a book.
Oh, it's a book.
It's a book. So the podcast was kind of hyping up the book.
Okay.
But for me, it's, do you do gratitude in the morning?
You know, this is something new I started.
good.
Name three things you're grateful for, right? Like I just started at the beginning of this year.
Okay, I love it, man.
Like I would do it on and off.
Uh-huh.
I would do it, you know, maybe on a Sunday. I'd be sitting there drinking coffee, and I'm like, all right, I got to think of, let's think of 5 things I'm grateful for, right? Like, and I would do that, but every day, right when I get up, right when before I go to the gym, I drink my pre-workout, and I like to wake up a few minutes, right? I'm not going to just hop in the car at 5 a.m. I'll run into a tree or something. But so I'm sitting there for about 15, 20 minutes, sipping on some water and pre-workout, and I write some things I'm grateful for every morning.
Good.
I've done that since January. And you know what's interesting? Actually, there's a lot of truth to doing that every day, because they say like it kind of rewires some stuff in our brain.
Does.
But I really genuinely feel that. It's crazy.
Because you're not looking for anything to change, essentially, right? You're not looking for external anything, because if you say when this will happen or if this happens, you can't control that. You can only control your mind, essentially, of what's happening right now, of what's already occurred. Like, I'm grateful for my wife. I'm grateful for Lucy. I'm grateful for my 10,000 listeners that I get. I'm grateful for the sponsorships that, help pay, or, all these things. And you can even get smaller. Like I'm stoked that like my bed
Dude,
sheets.
I put jacket, glass of water, man.
Yeah.
Like anything, man. You got to be grateful for so much because we have so much.
It's true.
So many people don't have. You know how many people would love to start a podcast, but they don't even have the money to buy microphones?
Yeah.
But that's like a dream of theirs, right? So you're grateful, or or blessed, or whatever, to be able to have the funds to have a laptop, to have some microphones.
So,
so
I'll send you that podcast.
Please do.
I think like what you mentioned before, it's a practice. It's not just like for you, you've gotten in shape, you've lost a ton of weight, but if you stop, what happens?
It'll all come back, man.
It all goes out.
So I got to keep doing it.
Yeah, right. And
read every day, do all this every day, man.
Same thing with happiness, man. Like
meditating is another thing I'm trying to get into this year because I've never really done it, but I've actually found some podcasts. They're free, and it's just kind of one of those things like I just need to like experience it, right? Because it's hard, like just close my eyes for 10, 15 minutes. It's hard,
dude.
Because I want to open it up, and I'm like, I got this to do. And it's like,
yes, and that's why
Chris,
it's important.
No, Chris, just sit here for 10, 15 minutes, and then once I master that, maybe I'll take some classes.
Dude, I would even just do 5.
5 minutes.
I would just start with 5 and. Like there's some
do you
cool
meditate?
Apps. I do. So usually what my morning looks like is so I wake up at 5, and so I have a few things. So it's reading, journaling, meditating. I do yoga or stretch, and then the gym. So if I do 3 out of the 5, I consider it a win for the day, because 5 that's a lot.
Yeah.
To do all these things before work, but if I do 3 out of the 5. It's kind of what Andy was saying about those 5 tasks to accomplish. I consider it a win. I'm like, today is already a dope day. I've accomplished these 3 things. I've already won. If anything else good happens, it's just a bonus. I'm happy for the rest of the day.
Yeah.
And that just sets your day because you're already in a state of gratitude and accomplishment that really, if anything else good happens, hell yeah. But if anything bad happens, it's like, oh, I'm already had a good day. So no biggie. Yeah.
No, I love that. Yeah, I need to do more. Yoga is actually another thing I've never done. I want to do. Dude, maybe not. Maybe
it's made
not
me stronger.
Right this second, but like maybe in 6 months down the road.
It's made me stronger in the gym, which is I didn't expect that. Like for me, I was thinking, cool, it's gonna make me more flexible, more mindful,
stronger too, huh?
But yeah, like
there's
it's made me stronger.
A lot of people that swear by yoga.
Yeah, and like for me. I had a misconception of I want to be this buff guy or this muscly guy. I can't be flexible. You can't have both. But then a positive side of social media, I saw these just ripped dudes who are just flexible, and like gymnasts who are extremely flexible. And so I was telling myself a story of I can't do this when I could do it.
Yeah.
And so over the past 6 months, like when I crossed my legs, I couldn't even, like that was painful. Not painful, but uncomfortable.
Yeah, uncomfortable.
But now I can like lean over with my legs crossed and touch my forearms to the ground. And I just did that on Monday. And I was like, damn, like
that's good.
That's cool. I didn't even realize that. And I was like, cool, progress, man.
And that's the thing we need to realize, like in 5 years time's going to go past whether we want to or not.
Yes.
Where do we want to be in 5 years?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Do we want to be in the same place?
Nope.
Or do we want to maybe, have read more books, traveled more places, learned a new language, whatever it is? Why not just tinker away a little bit every day?
Yeah, I love it, man. Like, how many podcasts do you listen to a week or day?
I listen to a lot less than I used to.
Yeah?
A lot less than I used to. And that's just because, I'm trying to do different things. I'm trying to, incorporate more reading. I used to be a big reader years ago, and then it's kind of fizzled away. And over the last couple years, I've tried to incorporate more and more. And then I would say, my New Year's resolutions actually start more in October-ish, September, October.
Me too, actually.
Because I start to think about it, and I'm like, I want to get a jump start. And then start incorporating it. And it isn't so much a New Year's resolution. It's more like just a new year kind of makes me think. But anyway, so I'm trying to read more. I'm trying to, do all these other things. And so I'm not listening to as many podcasts. but I would say, I mean, I subscribe to about 55, 60 of them. And I probably at least listen to 3 or 4 a day.
Good for you, man.
Podcasts. So times 7 is like 20 to 30 a week, 20 to 30 episodes, about hour long. But some of them are even longer. Joe Rogan episodes get
4 hours,
3 hours. Yeah. Some of them 4. And I've listened to a few of his 4-hour ones.
That's half a book.
Yeah. But yeah, so I consume a lot of content.
Good. Why do you think your podcast has been so successful? But first, I want to recognize you really for sticking it out. Because you started in 2011, you said?
2011 is when the journey started, but I actually launched the first
2012?
podcast in August of 2012. So this August will be my 7th year.
Like, really, though, props, dude, for, like, sticking it out for that long. Because I think most people will quit.
Well, and it's successful. What's success to you, though?
Ooh.
That's the thing, right?
That's
like,
a good point.
Just because it's perceived successful, is it successful? Right?
You're
but
redefining success.
Another reason what I've stuck through is because it's also one of those things of like, well, what's around the corner in another year, right? Like, it's kind of one of those things. I swear I read a meme of this or some kind of quote maybe, but it was like, you know, when you die and you're in heaven, you're going to see all these things of you could have been this. And so I think about that a lot, right? Like, I'm just like, how horrible would it have been if 3 years into doing it, they're like, well, this is where you would have been if you would have stuck it out 5 years. This is where you would have been if you would have stuck it out 8 years. And I'm not gonna lie, it was also nice to start dating my wife. She's a graphic design person because, dude, 3 years into it, I wasn't making any money, and the last thing I could afford was a fancy web page, some nice graphics, some nice designs. Well, she could do all that now, and so I've been lucky in that department. Not, you know, there's a lot of truth to that because. People perceive things on how nice they look too, you know? Oh, you got a good website, so you must be successful.
It's true.
Well, no, not necessarily.
So what other entrepreneurial ventures? You mentioned your beard oil.
Have I done in life or have I just done in general?
So that's just coming up. So I just feel that you're really...
I've always been dude, I used to roll up my neighbor's trash cans for a nickel, man.
Really? Dude, I love it. And I feel like you're just tapping... your potential. Like, I have a really good feeling, man, that like you really are just about to, whatever it means, just like all these changes that you made just within the last year. Think about that, man. Like, just in the last year, how much better you feel and more healthy, and like your family, dude, your next 40, 50, whatever years are going to be dope, man.
I've always been, it's the way I think I was raised a lot. I wasn't raised with a lot of money, right? And so I was always like, if I wanted something, I had to make the money to do it. And, you know, at a young age, I remember rolling up my neighbor's trash cans, sweeping their porch. In my teen years, I got into doing birthday party clown shows.
You were the clown?
I did. I was a clown.
Yes,
man.
dude, I love it.
Making balloon animals, doing magic tricks. I still love it. I still have this desire to do it, but then I'd have to shave my beard off. But, you know, so I got into that in my teens. I wanted to go to clown college, the whole 9 yards.
Okay.
Then I started, through that, I did a record label for a while. I was really into the hardcore punk rock scene, and I was putting out records for bands, writing. I don't know if you're familiar with fanzines, you know, the actual paper fanzines, photocopying at Kinko's late at night. Did that. I ran like a little music mail order company where I'd buy the music on wholesale and sell it retail. But this was back before computers, so I had to put together a little catalog, and then I passed them out at all the punk rock shows in Salt Lake. I sold vintage clothing on eBay full time for about 4 years, going to estate sales, thrift stores, specializing in old concert shirts from like the 70s and 80s. Wow. And then, I mean, there's always I got just crazy stuff I've done. And then now I'm making some beard oil. I want to start doing some beard balms and beard waxes. And I think it would even be fun to learn how to make a bar of soap or something, you know, just because, again, it's skills, it's knowledge, it's learning something new. And then you get to reap your what you've made. And a guy like myself with a beard, it's like, hey, why not make my own beard oil, right? Like, if anybody would be good at that, it might be me.
And I've seen you post about podcasting is easy. Do you own that?
So yeah, that's a little project that my wife and I do, where it's like podcast coaching, and podcast. It's basically so the two of us together, because my wife is a UX designer, which I had no idea what a UX designer is. User experience with computers. So she's good with all the web pages and graphics, and she does some stuff for a local company here with their apps and stuff. But so it hit us actually at a podcast conference we went to last summer in Philadelphia, Podcast Movement, which everybody should go to if you're a podcaster. If you have the funds, do it, because they'll change it. That actually changed my anyway. So we're like, why don't we create this thing where we kind of do things together, where you're kind of focused more on all the graphics and all the design part, and I could do all like the other stuff with like helping them, with the technical stuff, or how to launch the show, or how to even whatever it is. A lot of people don't even know how to get into iTunes, right? And so I think she might have had that design. My wife has a she probably owns about 40 different domains, and let's do it with this, and let's do it with this. So because even down to artwork, right? A lot of people don't understand there's a lot of like strategic things with what your podcast show art is, right? Well, I mean, the fact that my wife does a podcast, I mean, she was doing a podcast when I met her, so she's been doing it for years too. But so you get somebody with that skill and experience, or who could do a website, or we're actually in the process of building an I Am Salt Lake app. Well, she's doing all that, which is going to be dope once it comes out. I'm really excited for this. But yeah, that's kind of a little thing we're doing.
Okay, rad. So
the long answer, I feel like I'm just mumbling these answers.
You're good, man.
Okay.
I love it. So what's your pitch for, if people aren't in Salt Lake, why would they want to listen?
To I Am Salt Lake? I would say we have actually have a decent audience outside of Salt Lake. I'll give you an example. We got an email, gosh, it maybe is 4 or 5 months ago now, but there was a guy from Poland who reached out to us. He found our podcast on YouTube.
Okay.
And he's like, I'm going to be visiting Salt Lake City next summer, and I found your show. This is great. Right? Like now I feel like I know all these things. I know where to go eat. I know where to do this. But what's cool about that is he kind of returned the thing and said, hey, if you ever make it out to Poland, look me up.
Hey, there we go.
It's the same thing. I have a listener in Ireland. We have some listeners in New Zealand. And so what's really cool is here is this Salt Lake City podcast that I started. And I got international listeners. I got international friends. People that move away from Salt Lake that still want to be connected. Again, people that are moving here. People that some people just like to learn about new areas. Yeah. Right? And I found that with the people that have emailed me and reached out. They're just like, I just want to learn about a new city.
That's a good
what
answer.
You do.
That's cool.
Or maybe they're just visiting and they maybe only downloaded 10 episodes.
Have you done any SEO?
For
your podcast?
Or
people just find it like
sort of. I mean, that's the website.
Yeah.
SEO with podcasting is hard because obviously Google's not pulling up all these voices, which actually there's been talk that they are working on this like back end thing. We'll see when it happens though, because we miss out. Podcasters versus bloggers miss out. Thus why we were actually trying to go back through some of our old episodes and transcribe them.
Oh, that's a task.
Well, it's a task. There's actually some services that will do it for you. But again, it's money, right? So you figure if you were going to go back and transcribe even 300 episodes, because then you got to, so it takes some time. But the thing is all that content then gets pulled up on Google, or so we hope.
Yeah, so you hope.
But yeah, so I'm not like an SEO expert.
Yeah.
I know enough about it that it could work, but it's definitely, I think if you have a podcast, get a website at least. I mean, just even if it's just one page to have the players, so at least you have the titles.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, so where would people find you if they want to connect with you?
IamSaltLake.com.
Boom.
I mean, it's easy. I mean, people even tell me, I don't know how did I luck out with such a good website, really, if you think about it, right? Especially even a .com. But yeah, I Am Salt Lake really on every social media, Instagram, Facebook.
Okay, have you noticed an uptick in your podcast with, I feel like over the past 4 years, Salt Lake has boomed in business, like all these new businesses coming, whether they're local or not. Have you noticed, like, because you're just like you're an IV in the vein of Salt Lake, you know, like have you noticed like an uptick in the energy? Like what has changed with like all this new business coming to Salt Lake?
Well, I mean, there's been both sides changing. You got all these people complaining. Oh, well,
Traffic.
There's too many people on the road. Or I mean, I've had people flat out tell me, you got to quit doing the podcast. You're making people move to Salt Lake. You're making it look too
That's
cool.
awesome, dude.
And it's like, dude, I'm sorry. Right?
Yeah.
You know what I'm noticing about people? I think people are starting to look at Utah and Salt Lake as even just a normal city, right? I think for so long it had a really bad stigma to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know really how it got there, and I don't know whether it was the people that did live here or the people that would visit, because in all reality, I always just felt like the stigma was false.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they go to bed all night, or nobody drinks, or nobody does this and that, which isn't true.
Yeah.
I mean, I had people reach out to me on the podcast. Oh wow, I didn't even realize you can get booze in Salt Lake City, right? And that's, I think there's just a normalcy that's happening. That's happening in Salt Lake, and even people realizing that people aren't afraid to push the limit here, right?
Okay, dude.
Yeah.
There we go.
I don't know if that answers your question.
Answers. So we've come to a segment in the show where I call it Scroll My Soul.
Scroll my soul.
There we go. And the reason being is because when I listen to podcasts or interviews or read or conversations, I keep a running list in my phone of quotes or thoughts that inspire me.
Sure.
And so I randomly, flip through and I select a thought for you.
Okay.
And I just ask you to reflect on it, like how does it resonate with you? And this is actually a quote that you posted.
Oh gosh, the pressure's on,
so it
man.
says, being vulnerable is the only way to allow your heart to feel true pleasure. Do you know who said that?
I want to say Brene Brown, didn't she?
It said Bob Marley. I'm not sure.
Oh, Bob Marley. But that actually, now, okay, Bob Marley probably did. Okay, it sounded Brene Brown.
So yeah, being vulnerable is the only way to allow your heart to feel true pleasure.
Absolutely. I mean, again, how are you going to let somebody, if somebody doesn't know you, how are they going to get into your heart?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Relationships, friendships.
Sometimes it's hard though, man.
You got to let people in.
Yeah,
and
right.
It's hard.
Because I think people fear heartbreak. Just what you said.
Dude,
people leave.
I mean, I'm not, I fear it all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Especially if you've had your heart stomped, which we've all had our heart stomped on, right? And it's unavoidable. But is it fair to the next person? No, probably not.
And to yourself.
And to myself. But yeah, man, you got to let people in.
Like, pain is part of it. It's part of love.
Yeah.
It's a part of happiness and just enjoyment. Like, if you embrace it and just accept it for what it is, I think you can find beauty in that. That might sound a little, I don't know, hopeful, but I think that you can. So I just really love that quote. So, do you have any tips or advice for people? I'm going to challenge you. Not podcasting advice.
Okay.
But just what have you learned, or just any last tips or advice for people?
I think the biggest thing that I'm trying to learn
Mm-hmm.
is that nobody gives two shits about what you're doing, right? People aren't sitting around at their homes being like, "Oh, well, that Chris guy, he's a piece of shit," you know?
Yeah.
But yet in our heads, we think that, we feel that.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about how somebody said, "Oh, you know, that Chris guy's an asshole." And it's like, okay, he said that to me, but in what context was it even said to him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so things get distorted. We got to get out of our own heads. We have to just realize that, like, they're not paying our bills.
Mm-hmm.
We can't, gosh, what's the word? You know, our happiness can't be dependent on them.
Mm-hmm.
And if it is, that sucks. Now, that's easier said than done.
It's true.
So, I mean, I don't know how it is for you, man, but
Mm-hmm.
but I could realize all these things, but it's how to put it into my own life. And
Mm-hmm.
and you got to do, at the end of the day, do what makes you happy. And I know that people can say, well, heroin makes me happy and, you know, all this stuff. But it's like, okay, let's be real here, right? Like,
Long-lasting,
because
healthy.
at the end of the day, when we're on our deathbed, do we want to have certain regrets? Because I bet you $100, you go into the hospital right now and on somebody's deathbed and you were to ask, it's all the stuff they didn't do because they were too afraid.
Yes.
And that's where you have to get out of that. And I used to challenge myself. I should do this starting today. Maybe is
today. I love
doing something out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to do that every day, though, because you're like, well, I don't know. I mean, what can be uncomfortable? But or maybe just in general, just try to get out of your comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe do something that you don't normally. Call somebody up. Call an old friend up. I mean, even that's uncomfortable sometimes.
Dude, and
Shooting an old friend a text message.
Yeah.
Just because you're like, oh. But in reality, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're probably going to be stoked that you texted them.
Yeah. You're speaking my language, dude. Welcome to Goalink. That's what it's all about. So that was a perfect way to end it. Well, Chris, thank you for joining me. It's been awesome to watch your journey, and for real, I mean it.
Thank you. Thank you
you're
doing
gonna kill it in the future.
Doing the podcast. Do you even know what episode you did of I Am Salt Lake, man?
Dude, I'd have to check.
I'll say it. Yeah, because I want to. I mean, I know you could just like Google it. That's how I always do things now. Is I'll just go to like Google and I'll type the name and then I Am Salt Lake and it will pull up the episode. Because I used to know every episode, man. And people would be like, oh, yeah, people would be like, oh, what episode was you know, the food truck, Jay Looney from the Chow Truck, or what episode was the sex doll one was really good. That was a good episode. But yeah, so we Harrison Gig.
Yeah.
And Better Business Bureau, was
Better
it?
Taste Bureau.
Better Taste Bureau. And
142.
142 for which one?
Better Taste Bureau.
Better Taste Bureau. And then probably Harrison Gig was in the 90s then.
Dude, let's
because that was before. But this is what's crazy about podcasts is that you can go back and listen to those, and they're always
I went back and listened to it.
And I bet you dude, it's funny to listen to old episodes and like, dang, I've come far. So much better. Is it not up there?
Oh, my favorite episode, 69.
Oh, you guys, that was 69? Wow, man. Dude, that's crazy. Because especially considering, like I said, I think I just posted 364 or 363.
Yeah. 69, man.
That's dope. But yeah, thank you for letting me come on the podcast. Thank you for doing this. And might I give you a piece of advice if you ever want to throw the towel in for this podcast? Is remember why you started. Remember why you started this, and realize that even if you only get 30 people listening to that, you don't know who in that 30
and what difference it makes. Because
I mean, dude, that's a whole nother tangent. I could tell you some of the crazy stories of emails I've gotten
and that's what we need to remember
of listeners.
Not the people who hate it.
I'll be like, oh my gosh, you listen to this, right? So that's You got to remember that.
Yeah, I love that.
And even myself, like I got to remember that for all the
Yeah.
haters. And that's something too is I'm trying to learn to walk away from it.
Because what's the percent? Like 0.05?
Yeah, exactly.
Like out of the 10,000 people that listen, 2 people.
I mean, we got a feedback on iTunes saying we're too liberal. All right,
Like,
1 star.
That's
1
very,
star.
dude. Oh, I saw that and I loved.
We just had fun with it, though.
Dude,
We're
like, have you seen the Snowbird ads about how they have billboards? Like Snowbird Ski Resort has billboards of the 1-star reviews.
Oh, do they?
I'll show it to you, but it's a marketing ploy, and what it is they use it to advantage that mountains too steep, or like powder too deep, like experts only.
You never get people happy, man.
Right? But that's like they use it to their advantage. And I think that's a really cool lesson of like, again, like being honest about imperfections to let it free you. And it pisses those people off that once you hate on them, like you post that 1-star review and you just laugh at it. Dude, you have the power.
I love it.
Okay, dude.
Yeah, let's get out of here. Thank you for doing this podcast with me, man.
You know it, man. Thank you all for tuning in this week. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Chris. And this week's challenge is inspired by MyIntent. Check them out at myintent.org. Their mission is to be a catalyst for meaningful conversations and positive energy in the world. So they have little bracelets or necklaces that it's just very simple. Check them out. And essentially, what's your word? Like, what's your intent that you want to have? And the question you should ask yourself is, what virtue do you want more of in your life? Or what is a challenge you want to overcome? Or what are you most passionate about and want to do it more? So there are reminders there of your words of what you want your intent to be throughout your day and throughout your life. So what do you value? Mine, for example, this year is be bold. I decided on this theme because of the new changes I'm going through in my life, and I want to be bold and I want to step forward in confidence. So your challenge this week is to come up with your word or your theme, whether it be for your life or just this year. And bonus points for taking on an action on that theme and letting us know through your stories or messages. So please let us know once you complete the challenge, whether you find a word and you take an action on it. Post on Facebook or Instagram using #GoalinkChallenge. Send us a private message or tag us in your stories. And you can even use the Goalink hotline. To use the hotline, call 385-626-0525 and follow the instructions. Follow us at Goalink Group. My name is Ben. I love you. And this is The Goalink Show.